This is Super Smash Bros. Melee for the GameCube, one of the GameCube's best launch titles, as well as one of its best multiplayer games, if not the best. The concept is the same as the original Super Smash Bros. On the N64. Melee once again lets you play as different Nintendo characters and fight other Nintendo characters on stages based on various Nintendo games, and there's still the objective of building damage onto your opponents, then knocking them off the screen. But this GameCube sequel also contains more characters, more moves, and way more content. For a GameCube launch title, Melee's graphics are pretty damn good. Even today it doesn't look like an ugly game. The character models look great, there's great use of color throughout the game, and the stages look better with more detail and more things going on. The game demonstrates the GameCube's graphical power very well, given that it was released on a brand new console just 2 years after the N64 original, and suffice to say, Melee has aged far better than its 1999 older brother. Along with more characters and stages, Melee has more music. There are a lot of older and newer music tracks based on past Nintendo games which greatly add to the action. In fact, some stages will randomly play different music. For example, the Hyrule Castle stage usually plays a specific Zelda theme, but sometimes it'll randomly play a theme from Fire Emblem since Marth and Roy are in the game. Or a stage will just play a different track from the same game the stage was inspired by. This adds some more variety into a game that already has more variety than its predecessor, with one stage in particular playing a certain classic music track to go with the combat. We really need another 3D Donkey Kong platforming game. The audio also has more variety in sound effects that actually sound more realistic, but slightly cartoony. But Melee's changes are more than just technical improvements and changes to presentation. The changes to gameplay are what make it continue to stand out in the minds of many Smash Bros. Fans. This time around, the single player is loaded with new modes to make it much longer than before. Let me quickly go over at least the bulk of what Melee has to offer in single player. Classic Mode. This is a remake of the arcade-style single-player mode from the original Smash Bros., but with more variations. There are still team battles, one-on-ones, giant opponents, and you versus a large team, but the characters are more mixed in each of these categories. You won't always fight Giant DK or a Yoshi team. Sometimes you may fight a team of Pichus and a giant Bowser, or a team of Mr. Game & Watches and a giant Captain Falcon, for example. The Metal Fighter towards the end is a randomized metal character instead of always being a Metal Mario, and the Master Hand at the end is back, but he'll be joined by the Crazy Hand on certain difficulty levels. Classic Mode also includes the target breaking challenge from the original. The concept remains exactly the same, but it's all new levels for each character. Another returner for Classic Mode is Race to the Finish, only this time, it's more advanced and more challenging. There are several doors with which to finish at. You'll be doing much more ups and downs in this race, and you can take alternate paths. Where the original seemed more focused on speed, the Melee version is much more of a platforming challenge that works within the Melee mechanics. So yes, Nintendo really beefed up their main single-player mode, but they didn't stop there. They also included an adventure mode. It's kinda like an artificial story mode without a whole lot of cutscenes. You choose a character and travel through a predestined path from world to world and fight that world's characters. Sometimes the transitions from world to world make sense, while other times you just appear at another Nintendo world for convenience. And this isn't some open adventure. The adventuring in between fights is the 2D platforming challenges like what you see here. At the end of the adventure, you fight Bowser, and you can fight Giga Bowser if you complete the adventure mode with certain requirements met. Could you imagine fighting this in a 3D Mario game? The third main single-player mode is called All-Star Mode. This is an unlockable mode similar to Classic Mode, except there are no giant opponents or bonus stages, and you don't automatically get damage healed down to 0% after every fight. Instead, you have 3 hearts to use in between fights as you fight your way through all the playable characters of Melee. Think of this as a type of survival mode, but you change stages every time, and there is actually a reachable end to it. Outside of these main single-player modes which you play through to unlock stuff, there are bonus modes. but even these modes you play to unlock certain things. The event matches are these rather funky, objective-based fights. Most include some additional rule to add a unique challenge to the fight. Some of these little twists are kinda funny too, but don't let that fool you into thinking they're all easy. Some of them are pretty difficult. Frickin' Dark Link. Then there's the section for multi-man melee challenges. You choose a character and fight against multiple male and female wireframe characters. The male ones are clearly modeled after Captain Falcon, while the female ones are obviously Zelda-based. These fighters are easy to send flying with heavy-hitting attacks, but they are deadly in numbers. There are different variations you can do for multi-man melee. Some of them are easy, some are cruel. Part of the challenge is completing a multi-man melee to set a record time, or just seeing how long you can survive. And now for the home run contest, where the only thing you fight is a big sandbag that doesn't fight back. The idea is to choose a character and build up damage on the sandbag any way you want, then hit the sandbag with the home run bat and see how far you can send it flying. This mode is really an amusing way to test your control, since you don't want to knock it off the platform by mistake, but you want to put as much damage on it as possible in a short time. Melee also has you collecting trophies throughout the game. You can get these trophies in a lottery machine or by playing different single-player modes, such as this bonus stage here. They don't really add that much to the game, but they're cool bonus collectibles that you can then gander at whenever you like. So there's a lot more to unlock in Melee than the original. This amount of things to unlock, along with more varied and fleshed out single-player modes, makes the single-player more fun to play and actually worth coming back to. Okay, enough of the single-player. Let's get to the main reason people play any Super Smash Bros. Game, and that is the multiplayer. Although the multiplayer is still very accessible to newcomers, the combat itself is actually faster and more technical this time. So much to the point where any new Super Smash Bros. Player may want to start off with the slower, original game before playing Melee. See, Melee is a game that's easy to pick up and play, but it's deceptively deep. The A and B buttons are still the only buttons you really need for attacking, and the only buttons you really have to use for playing this game at a very basic level. But now there are more attacks based on what direction you move the control stick with that attack button. This applies to throws too, since you can now also throw upward and to the ground instead of just left or right. These additions to controls give more hardcore players a motivation to master the game's fighting mechanics. On top of the deeper combat, Nintendo added more features to the multiplayer. Aside from being able to customize a longer list of items, Melee features much more stages, which are plenty of fun to fight on, including 3 retro stages from the N64 original. The stages are more diverse and elaborate in design, which helps the combat to be more engaging. But some of the stages which tend to be less popular among competitive players are the moving stages. Now it is good to have these stages included for variety, and most people who simply play for fun will like these stages as well as the rest. But competitive players tend to get annoyed with having to worry about the stage moving, thus causing some cheap deaths while they're trying to fight for victory. Nintendo, as long as you keep stages that don't move, and especially keep Battlefield and Final Destination for the really competitive players, I would say keep making these moving stages too, because they are fun. Speaking of competition, Melee's multiplayer actually comes with a tournament mode. You can set up how many fighters, human and AI, will play, how many fighters will fight per round, among other things. Once all your customization is done, the game will process the tournament like an actual tournament, moving the winners forward after each round and eliminating the losers. This is a great way to have Melee tournaments with your friends without having to use a dry erase board or any other external means of keeping track of said tournament. But wait, there's more! For and giggles, Nintendo added several new modes for multiplayer. There's Slow-Mo Melee, Tiny, Giant, Super Sudden Death, Stamina, and a few others. I particularly find it interesting how Stamina is more like traditional fighting games in that the focus is to actually drain your opponents of their health. All of these modes add more funky ways to play whenever you and your friends want to try something different from the normal multiplayer. But now I come to a point that's often been a complaint by Melee fans. Clones! While it is cool that Nintendo added new characters to Melee, some of them feel like clones of pre-existing characters with different skins, or in some cases different speed. Like Young Link being a clone of Link, Falco being a clone of Fox, and Dr. Mario being a Mario clone for examples. This does seem a bit lazy and annoying, but it's hardly something I would call a big problem. People still like to play as the clones if they happen to like those characters, or if for some reason they play better with a clone character. Like for me, I happen to play better with Dr. Mario than I do with regular Mario. I don't know why, but oh well, not something worth getting too analytical about. Clone characters aside, Melee's multiplayer is held in such high regard that it's been the focus of many ridiculously competitive tournaments. And from what experience I did get, I can say that the level of competition these tournament Melee players bring goes well beyond how much I play video games for the fun of it when I have the time. But this illustrates just how loved the multiplayer in this game is. While the original Super Smash Bros. Started something new and groundbreaking for fighting games and multiplayer games, Melee evolved the ideals of the original while adding several new things to the table, thus setting its own new and groundbreaking standards for its subgenre as well as its series. Whenever my friends and I weren't playing Nightfire, most of the time we were playing this. While I personally think Brawl is currently the best of the series, and I hope that the new Super Smash Bros. Game coming out next year is even better than Brawl, Melee is easily one of the best GameCube multiplayer games. It's truly a game that no GameCube owner or Nintendo fan should be without.